In a previous video, I went over all of the things I was aware I needed to do for my Series 1 Bridgeport Mill. So today I want to get started to tear it down. The first thing I want to do is to remove the socket head cap screws that hold on the power feed. This is a Bridgeport 6F power feed. The entire thing comes off as one unit. The shaft coming out of the power feed is attached to the main lead screw with a keyed coupler. On the left side, I'm taking off this nut and it just holds the handle and I can slide it right off. I can then pull off the dial lock nut and the dial. I removed the 3 screws that hold the bearing retainer on, but in retrospect, I don't think this was necessary at all. I believe the whole thing will come off together anyway. And then once I remove the 4 screws that hold the bearing bracket on, I can slide it right off. I set this shop cart up with a couple of 4x4s on it, so I have something to push the table onto. I can still raise and lower the knee to get it at the right height. But before I push the table all the way off, I want to remove the longitudinal lead screw. I started by just unscrewing it from the feed nut. I got almost all the way to the end before I decided just to pull the feed nut out of the bracket. You can't see it because of this bad camera angle, but there's a screw that holds the feed nut in place on a bracket. Once I get that out, the entire screw and nut can come out at once. Now I want to go back and go ahead and finish getting the table off. I'm sure some of you have already figured out why I can't seem to get it to go past these last few inches. It's about here that I realized I forgot to take out the gib. Hey, I said I was going to show as much as I can, mistakes included. This wasn't the first, I'm sure it won't be the last. Once I removed the gib retaining screw and the gib, the table has plenty of room to slide right off. And just got to make a quick adjustment to the knee to make it slide off a little easier, and table's off. Picked up a couple of eye bolts from the hardware store. I really wanted some cast steel lifting eyes, but they were completely out of stock. Very unusual for the place I can get these from. Slid a couple of T-nuts into the table slot and then screwed the eye bolts into them. I attached a couple of these shackles from my Jeep off-road recovery kit along with a short strap. And then I attached that strap to the hook on an engine hoist to make it an easy lift. I would like to take a second to thank all of the new subscribers to the channel. I really do appreciate that you've taken the time to watch what I've been creating. And if you're not already a subscriber, I encourage you to go ahead and click that subscribe button. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a new video. Now with the table up in the air, I can go ahead and roll the hoist over to my work table and drop it down so I can take a look at what might need to be done to it. I'm going to take a few minutes now to go ahead and inspect the table ways and the gib. There is definitely wear in the gib. I can't say at this point just how bad it is or if it will need to be shimmed, but I really don't anticipate that there's going to be a problem here. So in order for me to take a look at the table ways, I need to tilt the table up onto its side. This thing is extremely heavy. I'm just using a little WD-40 here to clean off some of the gunk so I can get a better look. There's a lot of swarf down in the V of the way, but that should be easy enough to clean out completely. It doesn't look like these ways were ever scraped, and I'm wondering if that's typical for the table. This other side of the table shows some very obvious longitudinal scoring. I would imagine a nasty chip was caught in there for a little while, and we'll see what kind of problem this might be later. The top saddleways being chrome don't look terrible. I'm cleaning them up here again with a little WD-40. There is a lot of what I would presume to be oil buildup inside the saddle, so that might take some effort to clean up, I'm sure. A quick look at the lead screw. It is, again, in pretty decent shape. I cleaned it up a little. I want to take some measurements on the threads. Down here on the left end, according to the calipers, the thread is about 84 thousandths of an inch wide. Over here in the center, however, they're about 76 thousandths of an inch wide. So definitely some wear in all these parts, but quite frankly, none of it really bothers me too much. Next, I want to get the saddle removed along with the cross feed screw. I start again by removing the nut that holds the crank handle on. Then I can go ahead and remove the dial and the lock nut. There are 4 socket head cap screws that hold on the bearing bracket, and then it'll pull right off. Just like for the X-axis, there are 2 screws that need to be removed to free the cross feed nut from the bracket. One is a washer head screw that keeps the other, which is the feed nut retaining screw, from moving. I put the handle back on the lead screw just to make it easier to pull the lead screw and nut out of the bracket. I'm taking the table lock out next just so I don't forget to do it later. There are 3 screws that hold the way wiper cover on, and then I can slide it off of the front. I will be replacing all of the way wipers. Same thing for the cover on the back of the saddle, but I can't get this one all the way off until I take the saddle off first. I go ahead and I pop out these 2 oil tubes that are in the feed nut bracket, and once those are out, I can remove the 4 socket head cap screws that bolt it to the saddle. And then it's just a matter of rotating the feed nut 90 degrees and pulling it straight out. At this point, I want to go ahead and pop out the remaining oil tubes. I understand it's going to be a lot easier for me to do this here than after the saddle's been removed from the knee. Some of these were in these holes really tight and was difficult to get them out. I was taking my time. The last thing I wanted to do was damage any of this. I'm hoping I can just reuse these tubes as they are. Now I want to go ahead and remove the saddle gib, and this thing was in here a lot tighter than I expected, and it wasn't until playing back this video that I realized that the saddle lock was engaged. That probably contributed quite a bit. With the gib out of the way, I can then slide the saddle all the way forward off the dovetails, and I'm going to go ahead and just set it up on the knee on its back. With the saddle up on its end, it makes it a little easier to remove the oil metering block. This is the main input of the one-shot lube, and then there's a bunch of fittings that lead to the tubes that go into the saddle. There are a couple of spacers behind the metering block that I don't want to lose. Now I can go ahead and take those tubes that I've already disconnected and shove them through these holes that were drilled in the saddle. So I can go ahead and put this aside so I can clean it later. Taking another quick look at the saddleways. More evidence of wear, but again, I don't see anything that's all that terrible. I did notice this crack in the feed nut bracket where the retaining screw sits. I don't think it's in a critical location. I will put a little braze on it later just to keep it from spreading anymore. I now go ahead and reach into the knee and remove the nut and washer that holds the bevel gear on. That's part of the knee lifting mechanism. I have to remove this shaft clutch. insert before I can remove the dial lock and the dial. These 3 screws hold the shaft into this insert on the knee. This shaft has a bearing on the end that's a fairly snug fit, so I'm going to give it a little bit of help with a dead blow. And now with the shaft and pinion out of the way, I can pop the bevel gear off of the lifting screw.
Ow, damn.
Now I can go ahead and remove the way covers on the knee. There's a stop screw which prevents the knee from going too high that'll come out. And then I can go ahead and pull the gib. The gib retaining screw here was the one that was missing, but I've already ordered a replacement. I'm going to go ahead and remove the oiler and all of the fittings that are remaining on the knee now. I'll disconnect all the compression fittings, but I'm going to leave the one tube intact. The oiler looks like everything's okay, but it does need to be completely torn down and cleaned. It just has a couple of screws that hold it onto the side of the knee. There are 2 set screws, one behind the other, that hold the knee lock in place. Once those are out, I can pull the knee lock shaft out through the front of the knee. And now I can go ahead and lift the knee off of the base. I used a strap and an engine hoist. To do this, I've threaded the strap through the hole that's there for the knee crank. I'm going to go ahead and lower the knee onto this furniture dolly. I think this will make it a lot easier to move it around in the shop while I clean it. And with the knee safely on the ground, I can go ahead and remove the elevating nut and the screw, as well as the pedestal. I'm going to stop any further disassembly at this point. I really want to get all of these parts inspected and cleaned that I've already taken off before I go about reinstalling them. There is quite a bit here that needs to be cleaned. I won't record any of that because that would be boring. I'm still determining whether or not any of this stuff will get repainted. I do appreciate you watching. Please give the video a thumbs up. Leave a comment. It helps out with the YouTube analytics. And I hope to see you on the next video.